I'm going to come back to Zoom then.
Oh, okay. I see
I
Don.
think we're there. I think we're there.
Hold on one second.
Yeah, we're live and recording.
Okay,
Okay,
great.
1 second. One moment.
Okay, Beth, I think
Okay,
you're
you're
good.
good, guys. Go ahead.
Okay, great. Well, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome everyone to Cultivating Voices Live Poetry. I am your host wherever you're joining us from the world. I'm Sandy Yanone, host of Cultivating Voices Live Poetry. I'm also the author of Boats for Women from Salmon Poetry. This is the 30th week I just keep saying 30th all week. I can't believe it. Of Cultivating Voices Live Poetry. Our Facebook group holds a weekly reading, and this was started in response to the pandemic in late March. We just keep persisting every week in our response, week after week, through fires, through protests, through the upcoming elections and here in the US and all that that entails. Many of us have suffered deep grief. And of course, we've experienced joys. And of course, for me, that brings me to today's reading, because certainly the joy of being able to gather every single week has definitely sustained me through this pandemic. I would like to now share my joy about sharing a little bit about each of our readers, with a reminder to check out their bios for contact information about how to purchase books, chapbooks, any swag, support them in their presses. It's really important during this time to support the poets and their presses. I want to remind you, those of you who are watching us right now from Facebook, to feel free to use the chat to share your love and support for our readers today. And I'll come back at the top of the second hour to introduce you to our hour two poets. I'm also, before I introduce our hour one poets, I would like to ask my sister Elizabeth Ann to mute herself, please, because I'm hearing some background. Thank you. All right, for our hour one poets, here we go. First up will be G. Buck, who is a maker with materials including food, words, color, and paper. They are in the second year of an interdisciplinary poetics MFA at the University of Washington, Bothell, and anticipate completing their thesis this spring. I really have a fantasy about attending University of Washington, Bothell, by the way. I just want you to know. After G will be one of my salmon siblings, John W. Sexton, lives in Kenmare, Ireland. He is the author of 7 full poetry collections, of which I own a few. The 2 most recent of which are Futures Past from Salmon 2018 and Visions at Temple Glantine from Revival Press just this year in 2020. And John will be joining us in April for a new book showcase reading from that new collection. I happen to own the newest book of yours that I have is Petite Mal from Revival Press. And in 2017, John was awarded a Patrick and Catherine Kavanaugh Fellowship in Poetry. After John will be G.E. Hemmen. G.E. is a poet and writer for youth equity work based in Tacoma, Washington, just about 30 miles north of where I'm here today from. G.E. holds a BA from Smith College and an MFA in writing from Pacific University. She is honored to return to poetry after the events of this past year so that we all may strike sparks together, carving out a new space and celebrating glitter left in the wake of old monuments. And finally, rounding out our Hour One Poets, another one of my Salmon siblings, Patter O'Donoghue is the founder and co-editor, along with his wife Colette, of PB Magazine and Press. He has written two critically acclaimed collections of poetry, The Death of Poetry and Jewel, which was the best-selling title on Salmon Poetry's website. An enthusiastic photographer, Patter's photos have featured in publications like The Shop, The Stinging Fly, The Dubliner, and Village. I'm so looking forward to our first hour's readers. And without further ado, I will pass it over to G. Buck.
Hi, everybody. Trying to get my view to switch up. If it will do this, will it do this? Well, I'll go from here. As Sandy had said, my name is G. Buck, and I'm coming to you guys today from Olympia, Washington. And I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge this is the unceded territory of the Squaxin Island people, as well as the traditional meeting place of the Nisqually, the Snohomish, the Wamish, and Coast Salish. Before, on Christmas Day of 1856, this territory was taken through the Medicine Creek Treaty. Legal, but not right. With that thought in mind, land has been very important to me over the last year as I've been doing my work in my MFA program. We've talked a lot about the process of land and what it means to draw from place, both eco-poetics, similar concerns. So a number of the poems that I'm reading today come from work I was doing in the spring, and I've been going back into those as they were a source of some, hopefully, joy in the darkness that we were experiencing. And so as winter approaches, I want to kind of remember spring and keep that ahead of me. This piece is called Handy Lines. Handy Lines. Offering nectar and pollen, dandelions feed bees sprung awake from winter. An advanced team of blowballs float fluffy on kid wishes if adults don't chastise first. They say, that weed, don't menace it upon, others don't want it. Half-nude fallow stalks fall on lawns, already grown patchy, possession vined over, plantago and clover. Spiky thistles bristle, leaves roar. Sunlit taproot seek water, while under blooms yellow petal pretty, though homey indicates clay is hard, packed, spent, impoverishment, soiled. Spoiled lush greens demean constant attention, as drifting browns, dingy browns, with white tufts aloft on sodden summer breezes. This next piece is, there are a number of inspirations. It began primarily as a exploration of synonyms, as the title will indicate. Well, the title is Euphemism of Polite Liar. And so for the future, if you don't feel comfortable to say that someone is a liar, here you go, some choices for you. Euphemism of polite liar. Perhaps 'tis too harsh a word to fling. Better, perhaps, more polite to choose another word to sing. Fibber, prevaricator, or falsehood fabricant. Just a faker, a mistake baker. Master misleader, and truther. What best way to politely say, you a lie? Twaddle peddler, of diminished means, a mere hyperbolist, not the whopper king. At base, a low cheater, common swindle, a thief. Now, a proper misprisionist is a totalizing taradiddleist, pretentious purveyor of nonsense, profound. A pretentrix, facilitating fellow felonious snakes makes that one treasonous Tom. and another as misrepresenter Maximus, but frankly, all are fabulous slickers, tricksters, frauds. Behind any great equivocator, stands of simpletons, Simon sit spinning yarns, decried tattlers, marketers of tall tales, perjured commissioners, counselors bearing false witnesses. Basic, be they dissimulationists or grating deceivers, see grandiose all disseminate calumny as amplifiers of phony faked receipts. Common among con men resides deluded illusionists, bluffering flufferists, charlatans and willy dilettantes, masquerade and connive for the chief inveigler. Would it be better to say seducer, seductionist and flatterer, or one who lures? Is a beguiler better? A sucker and wheedler sells snow jobs to plow to push bull. It is a coercive charmer, this inducer, this chicanery purveyor. A flimsy flammer scammer, waffle flipper, bunco hustler, busking a grift, gifting graft. Rustling ruses as lead racketeer, mountebank, goneth, a quack. Ere Louvner hawks MacGuffins all along lines of distorted track, he laid. A cockeyed concoctionist counterfeiter, that one, a master malarkey manufacturer, a known, low-down, unfounded flounderer. The fictionalist. That invalidator suckles spurious spam, so named distractionalist, bogus bobbies, fantasy laborers peddling patent fluff, fallacious flubba-dub-dubbery dipshitalists, or more formally, maligners of truth. Among malingering, caregiver-sating dishonorarians call reality's apostates true, treacherously bond-doggled swamp talkers. So as that piece, I think, indicates, thank you. As that piece indicates, I'm certainly caught up in some of the politics and the moments that we're living through. And so this next one is a quarantine story, and it's titled So-So. So-so, drunk these days, still remembering morning's remainder, what I was trying to forget, a headache. Hungover, still life drugged me out into the streets, pointed out protesting was not enough. You could not, you turned to get away, caught, and the hatch is open. Time's escapement slipped, slips, slipping, tick-tock, tick-tock. And where is the, was there where's a way worn away? Escapement anchors mechanisms with hold enough to release the little required to get ahead while standing still firmly in place. Stand your ground. Time is like that time you remember just. That time is. Justice is unlikely to pass unnoticed, is to just get by. As it is escaping. As it escapes itself and always runs away, escaping. Stop it, just a little bit. Stopped up to stave excess bleeding, some weeping, put on pressure, wait for Claudid and cream. The little boy with his index finger stuck in the dike holds back whole worlds from flooding, wiped away, and again. Dry slop, drip drop. It was like that, you know, I couldn't explain it otherwise. Ways to get there other than this? So unknown, so know yourself. So sewn in seams and screams are noted for frayed edges. Is this again the same? Seems different. Get sewn to something news. This was old hat as it ever was. Ever it always like that? Probably yes, but you know, they won't tell you. Let me see, I'm going to do some quick editing. I included many pieces and realizing I've got a little limited time. So leaving isolation, I was able to visit a friend. And this is Nadine's Orchard. Nadine's Orchard. We leave garden isolation, visit slow orchards, overgrown, gone back wild atop her high plateau. For deer, fruit falls and badgers too, but not we three. Walking her grounds, socially sanctioned, 6 feet between. Edges accepted and safe vacillate when evening settles into conversational comforts. reminder, remain distant now. Recall the advent of coronation. The visiting wild rims up stumps. Sheared roots ensure only so much flourishes. Thorny canes cascade cliffsides, while decrepit pears kept fenced past prime time succumb to wild plums, come to overtake everything. Offhanded, Nadine remarks that Jeff is supposed to pull sour grapes, but as is usual his indifference, he has yet to arrive. And I'll end with another piece from the garden, That Damned No-Name Vine. That damned vine possesses no name. Lookalikes may be Morning Glory, Possession Vine perhaps. I'll call it Devilweed, Satan's hairpiece, Mephistopheles' toupee, this matted yard rug, dug, digging trowels drug, through soil tumble and bumble, knotted bramble, bracken brumbles, not blackberries, but worse, far worse. Demonic vines twine in monocultured kissing, diseased families' rhizomes sideways or under our corms, grow habits overgrown. Misnomered as phallopia, I interrupted myself. Demonic vines twine in monocultured kissing, diseased families' rhizomes sideways or under our corms, grow habits overgrown. Misnomered as phallopia convolvulus sounds insidious and feminine creeping fecund prolific, and it's advancing, monstrous, natural life force abundance, smothering, sucking away conveys the vulvus, involves us in advanced removal, inch by inch, eye level with dirt. Thank you all very much.
And next is John W. Sexton, who will unmute and share his wonderful poetry.
Am I up? Yes. Am I there? Okay. I'm going to read a few poems from my current collection, Visions at Temple Glanton. Temple Glanton is a parish in Limerick, outside Limerick City, between Limerick and Newcastle West, and it's the birthplace of my father. I spent some of my childhood holidays there. And this is a series of, let's say, folkloric visions. I'm going to read them just one after the other. None of them have titles, and I'm just selecting a few from that collection. So I'll just start now. You snip the string on the brown parcel. As you begin to peel back the brittle brown covering, you realize from its veined surface that this isn't parcel paper. It's a single insect wing. You carefully spread the wing across the floor. It's as big as the sail from a small boat. You return to the table where a large box sits with a loose lid. Inside the box is a bundle of brittle wing, the matching wing you reasonably guess. Carefully once more, you spread this wing across the floor next to its other half. Wrapped inside this wing, a pair of shoes. The shoes are made of red wax. You place the shoes upon your feet. They are wonderfully flexible and squeak at every step. A red spot is left after each footfall. The wings lie expectantly, awaiting the moment when you will ask your mother to sew them to your naked back. Your back awaits. A dense fog has settled around your house. You open the back door and see a house across the field from yours, where no house has ever been. Lights seem on all over this house, upstairs and down. Even through the fog, you can see the house is moving, making its way up from the river. You fling on your coat as grey as fog, and step out. The fog is thicker now, and the house is some way distant, but all its windows are ablaze, and you can see the house fuzzily. You quicken your pace until you have caught up with it. It is now by the rim of the lake. Its thatch is all water weeds. Water crowfoot and white water lilies blossom thick to the chimney, the flowers pale in the dense super. The door of the house is open. You step inside, and the fog is there as well, but this fog is as bright as butter. Come in, my poet, calls a woman. You follow to where the voice has come, and in a room, sitting on a sofa of meadow rue, is a woman composed of murky water. Her hair, though, is the clearest of water and frames her muddied face. Small fish and frogs swim about inside her, break the surface of her skin, then slip back. Not a splash falls from her body. Sing for me, my poet, she says. And as bidden, you find yourself chanting, she by the river, she by the flood, she by the roiling water, she by her lover, she by his blood, she bore a flowing daughter. The woman of murky water rises from the meadow rue sofa and walks to the window. Her feet are full of green copper coins, each the cost of a wish. But none of the coins break through. You follow her to the window and look out. There is no sky and no fog, for since your entry to the house has moved. You look out at the weedy and languorous meadows. You look out into the indistinct depths of the lake floor. She by the river, she by the flood, she by the roiling water, she by her lover, she by his blood, she bore a flowing daughter. The buttery light of the inner fog begins to dim. Lie with me, my poet, says she. The sun lights the birch leaves greener. At a clearing, a fox stands before you. You remember him well, can see the mark you left in his skull with your stick, can see the eye hanging from his face from the day you brained him. You had killed him that day on a rocky outcrop where the dogs had cornered him. Good morning, says the dead fox. Good morning, you say. You have no dogs with you today, says the dead fox. No, you say. One took poison left out for a fox, and the poison killed him. One died from old age. One went out a day and never returned. The pupil in the eye, hanging from the dead fox's face, shines green as birchlight. Let me become your dog, says the dead fox. You are surprised. You want me to domesticate you, to bring you home? No, says the dead fox. Let me be your dog, and I will guide you to the place where the lost dogs gather. I will bring you into my den and domesticate you. This is a fair bargain for taking my life. I can return the dead to you. You follow the dead fox. Your mind is filled with understanding. You and the fox step into green. A multitudinous barking tunes you to the bone. I'd like now to finish with a poem from my salmon collection from 2018, Futures Pass. Before I go with this love poem, thank you very much to Sandy and Beth Ann, and congratulations on this, your 30th reading. Well done. And I hope to return to you again and again and again. The knot of leaving. Stepping from your gate, what will he see? His head down as always. He'll see the slugs, bloated fingers retreating from the ruined nasturtium. He'll see the dew bending grass from the verge. He'll see the pineapple weed, minuscule in the brain, the pin-headed urban flower of the paving crack, as much a sifter of dust as the ant hundreds, the unit of dismemberment applied to the toffee turning to tack on the curb. He'll see not you, not waiting to see him walk away, not watching as he turns at the gate, his head down as always, pretending merely to be shouldering the gate to its latch, pretending not to be watching for you, not there, not waiting to watch him leave. And with that, I will leave. Thank you, everyone.
And GE will join us.
Hi, good afternoon. Hi, Sandy. Thank you again. Still going strong here. We all appreciate it. That was fantastic, John. That was just mesmerizing. The language, the rhyme, and your reading of it, certainly. Thank you for that gift today. Okay, I've got a few poems here. The first one is Thoroughly Abandoned Castles, Rent to Own or $1,000 Down, Tacoma, Washington, where life expectancy varies 7 years by zip code. This is with a nod to American poet Wanda Coleman. The empty houses each sit abandoned monuments to a lifestyle families promised would fit. Now the doorbells echo and windows blinks, promises of banks, the emptiest yet. For when a family climbs into their first nest, not knowing mortgage terms or palimpsests, rent to own for years but not owning yet, redlining, now chalklining families in debt. Black and brown dreams deferred, the most frequent. Empty lots sold from Dream Street's bad sequence. Families lose their dreams and also their rent. The quiet as each leaves, the quietest yet. White family, white house equals white picket fence. Black or brown, foreclosed, told, dreams, overspent. To fix this equation, everyone's rent.
Mm, 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 mm. Yeah.
Next, this is Put Tanya's Sail Back. This is with a nod to American poet County Cullen.
Mm, County Cullen.
Put Tanya's sail back at the military store where it had been doing so well before, requesting 40% off those inflated prices. She charmed buyers from what could have been a crisis. Now the two older white owners had their pride. They wouldn't let new old ideas slide into this place that had gotten comfortably dusty inside. For in the USA, dust, though gray, is almost white. So when COVID-19 struck and times got lean and the register quiet and floor mop too clean, Tanya at the helm of the staff still stood, coaxing buyers the best that she could. And the doors stayed open even midst a quiet neighborhood around a shut down base. She somehow pulling flowers from a hollowed vase. They put the sale back and there was a flood. Her name erased, but the register's numbers stood. But why should COVID-19 make them act like they should? That the dust be mopped from this story. This is in honor of Tanya for keeping it going during COVID and always for Black women entrepreneurs and those ideas who sprang from registers caged in sound like tin, that from COVID and equity funding efforts, they get to sing a louder with more power. This next poem is Archery. This is based on a story from the New York Times by Raoul Vilchis. Monks from Bhutan who provide ride-sharing services in New York City have been partaking in archery, their national pastime for comfort, socializing at a distance and offering prayers for the city's speedy comeback. The Buddhist monks, now at their targets, concentrated quiet how they market. By focusing their mental attention, the arrow releases the city's tensions. For they know the arrow is the mind, balancing loud and quiet keeps both kind against the open fields of space and time. One shoots to keep the other in line, for the mind goes to our quickest targets, anger, sadness, joy, it'll mark it. For in these times that we may follow, their clear lines over days of open fields. For in the balance of chaos unstill, our arrow emerges, stillness and flight. I know we're all working to keep a balance during COVID, that we all may do that. That was really taken with how they were doing that. This is another ode for poet Wanda Coleman. She passed away in 2013, and she wrote from the 60s until her passing. Reading her poems now, it feels like they could be written today. I definitely, she's a fantastic poet, writing kind of destructured sonnets. For poet Wanda Coleman, sirens, the daily news, where she would catch the muse. Angels wrestled from light's refuse into the city to do her bidding, pulled from the litter something glittering. And were Wanda Coleman Black alive today, she'd don yet a new mask and be on her way, knowing light gleaned from alleys cul-de-sacs, if not cotton named, cannot refract. So that she'd don the mask needed for extra breath, for the white sun, brown shadows now an extra cleft, layoffs and short checks now redlining it, translating its graffiti until nothing left of her, going home without gas in her tank, a light shone still all that's left in her bank. Wanda, may change now be your thanks. I've got two that are a little bit lighter hearted. We'll shift toward the light a little bit as we're all working to do. This is Ode to My Parents' Garden, to Survival Through It. Hopefully my mom and dad are watching. I know my brother's on here in Olympia, Washington. Tomatoes, tomatoes, red from the vine. As long as they are red, we're doing fine. Christmas bulbs come earlier this year. Let's sauce them now to put up for the future. We're planning for it, canning for it, bright. Garden tomatoes now fill with delight. A symbol in red we all understand. As time has slowed, it's again in our hands. And this is for everyone, my grandma's tomatoes, my father's greenhouse rose, made into my mother's sauce, and for all those who stake elation through this situation. May red tomatoes be your bliss. May we make a victory garden out of this, especially today. Sorry. And the final poem I'll end with here is A branch overhangs the street, a path. When overgrown tree looms over the sidewalk, midst the colors of an afternoon walk, we're deep in thoughts and think, oh great, I must duck. Running into a tree now, just my luck. Then we run into it yet again in our minds, and we find that words soon make chalk outlines of everything that could go went wrong today, and soon the day's exhaust pipes hum, lead the way. COVID-19, only too happy to play. Then we quickly find ourselves again stuck, somehow shaking the branch, but not our luck. We might escape this branch, but another one lands, blowing it back again, yet it's again in our hands. Yet if we see the branch as a new tunnel overhead, we're free, then we laugh, and it becomes a funnel. Thank you very much today for the opportunity to read. Thank you very much to Sandy. It's truly a pleasure to be here today. Please buy everyone's books. Thank you. Mhm.
Next is, there he is, Patter O'Donoghue.
Hello, everyone. Sandy, how long do I have?
10 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll be quick. But whilst this reading was going on, I wrote a poem. Well, not a poem. It might be a statement. It's the little joke. It's the titter behind the hand. It's the thanking God. It's them, not me, not us. It's the herd mentality. It's not a phobia. It's bigotry. It's fear. It's hatred. It's dehumanizing others to do as we will with them. And I hope to God the poetry world, and it's there, it's coming. So with that in mind, I've changed my reading completely, entirely. I have this poem from Grace Wells from PB7, but it says it all. And I think it needs to be said. I think we need to be very careful here. Grace Wells, Scissors. Boarding pass and baggage, barefoot and shuffling. I'm suddenly grateful for the way my unmoored eye fixes on a perspex box of nail scissors. An impossible puzzle of innumerable loops and minute blades, a silver knot of redundant steel, incomprehensible but for the occasional nail file, the recognizable shield of a Swiss Army knife. And I know I am not looking at many hundred failed hijacks, but rather intimacies stolen from bathrooms and bedrooms, moments of ordinariness, tactile on the air. And I am put in mind of the heaped spectacles, the gold watches and wedding bands taken from Europe's Jews. How I've almost come to love the Germans and their impossible history, the way it stands like a mirror we must all look into once, look into that fucker every day, today. As if we could reveal how we might have fared, or would fare should it ever begin again. It begins every day. I have few illusions. I might sleep it out in extravagant underwear in the arms of an officer. If someone asked, I might take in a child, but no grand heroics. Though we'd know, wouldn't we? Do we? Do we fucking know? Do we see it today? Today, tonight, amongst us? We'd recognize the earliest signs, of persecution. If we saw them, we'd halt them in their tracks. Well, would we? I don't think we would. I think we're applauding and tittering. Jesus. Poetry. This is from my own book. You were a good mother. You slapped our face hard, hammered nails through hands and feet, pierced our sides with a double-edged sword, then dutifully packed the red, raw wounds with the feathers of dead songbirds, knowing when we grew, but stunted, strong, twisted, untamed, we could never just stand idly by and sweetly, gently sing. There's too much sweet, gently singing going on here. Contains Mild Peril, shortlisted for the Forward Prize by Fran Locke. We're fortunate to be publishing her next book, Hyena. It's extraordinary. If you ever buy one book, if you ever buy two books, buy Contains Mild Peril by Fran Locke. If you can only buy one book, buy Hyena by Fran Locke from us next year. Jesus, I'm angry. Hyena, questions and answers from Fran's book. And what is it like being a hyena? It's like withdrawal, trembling its traces all across the splendid belly of the night. It is ecstatic and mechanical, a kind of sanguinary prickling to be made spectral with adrenaline, to stream raw light through your fibre optic veins. It is holding the ice of his name in my mouth until it cools, until, I mean, it thaws. Perhaps one of my third favourite books is Birthday Letters by Ted Hughes. And in it, Famous Shameless says, to read birthday letters is to experience the psychic equivalent of the bends. It takes you down to levels of pressure where the undertruths of sadness and endurance have you gasping. The poems give the impression of utterance, avalanching towards vision. And that's a great quote, but it doesn't match his book, which is one of my favorite books, but it does match Fran's book. Here's our opening poem, Wild Talents. And there's a quote from Charles Hayfort. There is no man who is without the hyena element in his composition, and there is no hyena that is not at least rudimentarily human, Charles Hayfort. Her book is a tribute to Roddy Lumsden, the Scottish poet who died recently, and he was her mentor, and he was an extraordinary poet, but he's not a patch on Fran. On the day of your death, I became a striped hyena, hysteria's lank technician, cursorial man-eater, witch's mount. I ran, feliform punk with my mane of stale thistles over Primrose Hill, across Blackheath, to gnaw the shin bones of monuments, dragging my afflicted eye through the cagey manners of Frasers and Richardsons, each lesser cray. London's twitchy slang bloomed onto me. I was not afraid, animal, abandoned to its instincts, slouching down the twisting Venal steps to lick the yeast of my misdeeds. I tore your blankest manor into strips, left pennants of its dark meat snagged on the late Victorian railings. In cemeteries, I scorned inscriptions, wiped my hazy scent all over. I was the fur atlas of my loss. And the yellow grass grew sharp where it robbed on me, your heart's varmint, darling of the solvent park, weaving the obstinate dusk into silent film, starry coss. I did not sleep, but lay panting on a raft of trash, the serial bedwetter's flammable mattress, Saturday magazines still in their cellophane, Empire, mine, my hackles in the full flag of this failed state, Fleabit, the day after your death when they found me, Hoax Wraith, White Up Road's white middle. I think I was running. I think I'd been dreaming. I was the starkest hound of my spirit, gargoyle against this human bruise. A counterfeit Melmoth, grinding his Protestant teeth to stain, and on the poxy edge of sleep are bats, heralds of nocturnal ego to my fury. Sanguinary vandals in the bilious black of cities, hours reserved for sirens and disgust. You tell your rotten abacus of prayer, no rosary, my marbles of misdeed, each beady disappointment, each distended slight. Ask me again, am I happy? Am I pleased? Paranoia is an axe. I've read this wrong. I apologize. It starts here. Mina Harker to a stalker. Your bats have exceeded the belfry, leather attrition of wings to wear the twilight into dark, and numerous. Their mammal zeitgeist hums. Bats have written this song in basic. You are straightened, phony and prowling, seething with chivalry. How a wineglass breaks against your teeth, your latex tears. Combing your thin hair in the callous lounge, too bright. A bat is a kind of airborne pocket, inside out, shakes its dirty purse of fur. And watch as all your plumbous verbs fall down, your copper coins, your guano squall of names. Your bats have exceeded the belfry. You are becoming what you mutter to the mirror, marrow sucker, expanding a paraffin kiri through windows sealed with wax, a carbide pulse, these bats, to beat against your walls, your doors, your devastated glossaries of blood, and you, a moppet ghost, scribe to every mealy thought, the loiterer in gloaming, sickness in the rose. You'll rise, keening your canine distemper into email, thumb the touchscreen's runny eye, gout your mouth with dogged spite. Here come bats, crespulating wraths, angel cudgels, tenderizing air, their flight a chiral flate, you read minutely into ruin. Your bats have exceeded the belfry, dense ball of bats, a single raving viral heave. You believe yourself a victim. No, you've courted this coat of bats, and no atros dom sans mercy am I. No witch's curse for your buttonhole, no poison, lick blau bloom, your own piss licked from burdock, gristle stems of weeds, no worthy you. A counterfeit Melmoth, grinding his Protestant teeth to stain, and on the poxy edge of sleep are bats, heralds of nocturnal ego fed to fury, sanguinary vandals in the bilious black of cities, hours reserved for sirens and disgust. You tell your rotten abacus of prayer, no rosary, my marbles of misdeed, each beady disappointment, each distended slight. Ask me again, am I happy? Am I pleased? Paranoia is an axe you grind on gluttony, gnashed your teeth to needles, chewed my fault to pop. Fuck you. Your bats have become a mirror of meat. Your Halloween Narcissus, you, I was never yours. No profile clipped in silhouette or subject to a song. I am not your gaslight lily neck, trembling its remedy. My fists are made from garlic bulbs. My only humours, winter's air. I think that's it. Thanks very much. But seriously, we've had so many prejudice and hatreds, and poetry should be the last bastion of the small groups, the minorities. I don't believe in homophobia. I don't believe in phobia. It's not phobia. It's bigotry. It's hatred. It's picking on the small minority that you're not a group of. And if somebody goes along with that, we must call it out. We mustn't go along with it. We must point at it. We mustn't cancel them, but we must face up to it and deal with it. Trans people are people. Thank you.
Wow, I so appreciate Patter's passion and anger and calling out, calling it out. Well, friends, we are together for our second hour. I want to thank our first hour readers G, John, GE, and Padar. What a fab four. Just heard from. Folks, you're listening to Cultivating Voices live poetry. It's our 30th week with our now signature open mic. We have 8 readers join us for 10-minute sets for each poet, which is pretty extraordinary for an open mic. There's ample time to showcase one's poetry, including new publications, and we certainly welcome that. We know that our members have been generous book buyers, and the poets reading and their presses truly appreciate and definitely need our support. So I want to encourage you, if you can, to purchase a title or 2 today. And I hope that we can get a new book showcase when Fran Locke's books are out. Thank you. Well, now for our hour to poets. We will begin with Irish writer Catherine Crowley, who mostly expresses herself through visual art, as she's done for 20 years. She also enjoys drumming, dancing, and songwriting. At an open mic in 2015, she got so nervous on the large theater stage that she could not play her guitar. She laid down the instrument and delivered her song lyrics as a spoken word piece instead. And so began her love affair with poetry. Catherine lives and writes in Limerick, and she will soon publish her first chapbook. Following Catherine, returning to us for his 3rd reading, is Telmo DeSantos, who is an emerging writer based in Calgary, Alberta. His works have been published in local journals and collections, and one of his poems was recently scored to music. Telmo aims to write poetry that is both deeply personal and universal. Next will be Samari Zisk, who is a queer Jewish writer and MFA student at Mills College. You can find their work in a few journals, and you can find Samari themselves stressing over either a looming social function or if a hot dog should be considered a sandwich. It depends on the day. We're glad to have Samari back with us. Samari participated last week with some complications from technology for our National Coming Out Day Poetry March. So I'm glad, Samari, you were able to sign up for this week's open mic, as I know folks were really interested in hearing your words. And closing us out today with his first reading here at Cultivating Voices. And he's been so persistent and eager to be here. And I'm glad we've finally been able to have Bill Fay join us. Bill Fay is a retired engineer and poet, holds degrees in fine arts, electrical engineering, and business administration. Bill has had work published by the Virginia V Foundation, Puget Sound Poets, Creative Colloquy, Advocates for Immigrants in Detention, and the Haiku Society of America, among others. He will be publishing a chapbook on the immigration experience in America in December. Bill resides with his wife and their 2 cats, Tucker and Annie, on Fox Island in Puget Sound near Seattle, Washington. So without further ado, please welcome Catherine Crowley.
Thanks, Sandy. Is the sound okay? The first poem I have for you this evening is called Scripture. Go there if you must, worship with clock and leader, I just see a concrete block, grey, dark, looming, casting dark blue shadows on my way back to the sun. Go there if you must. I have no need of church, believe me. My love belongs not in a mosque. Life is death and growing. Weeds, herbs, flowers, all know the one soil. Birdsong is my scripture, revealed in forest heaven, and if it's all the same to you, I will stay far from the temple, as a lunar glow softly pales the night at its edges, and the longing of all souls makes a song of heart-shaped stars. This one is Toothache Writer's Block. Oh, I got a star. Thank you. We're all under the same stars.
Yeah.
Toothache Writer's Block. By the river, I do not want to ponder us humanity, yet it's impossible not to. Today is just like this. My mind insists on wading towards an ocean of thought while little waves shimmer on a brown silken stream, as if a shawl had slipped from the shoulders of an oak to fall to earth and become kinetic, liquid, majestic, and modest despite being embellished with dabs of golden sunlight. Huge tree roots grow beneath the path as glowing creativity glues all that I encounter in a bright new collage, mixing memories with here and now. Rivers move in one direction, arteries of Ireland seeking the Atlantic, but artistic currents flow from head to heart and back again, erratic and determined. They pass through my belly to tickle my feet, paint both wellies lilac, then gush down to Waterford, turn back, no rush, barefoot to swim through my Limerick ribcage before strolling uphill to this skull, dragging soft, soggy, wet towels of fun through my brain, flip-flop, flip-flop, stopping only to construct a trampoline, then bounce around in my jaw for as long as it takes. So here I am. Don't test me, Father, for I have spinned. It's been 3 weeks since my last expression. Gaia and the Warlord. This is quite a few years old. This was a song, but I'm not a great guitarist, especially in public. So this song became a poem. Gaia and the Warlord. Only she and the moon could know the graveyard of his mind, fraught with nameless terrors and thoughts of the killing kind, the tyranny of errors and insects fighting among themselves in a power-hungry famine, frightfully unwell. She saw his false smile, ashen grey face, talked in defiance of his fascist ways, and she refused to eat at his cold banquet of sold-out theories and old salad. When she took off her gloves from under her fingernails, stardust of love fell through the haze. She'd completely lost all of her appetite, but wanted to believe, and so she thought that he'd a good heart inside. His filthy hands smeared brown bread with screaming children's cries. Still, she sat down at his table, though the dream of peace was denied. When she took off her gloves from under her fingernails, stardust of love fell and caused him to faint. He shook, and she thought that his heart of blame was hard like steel or rock, but learning to beat again. So she cocooned him in the raw silk of her soul until moonlight faded into a dawn of gold. But in the new day, oh, he was still dark as night. So she left him in his graveyard and went home to her starlight tribe, where they all restored a garden to bountiful delight. The warlord kept rambling. He's still doubting his own mind. This one was inspired by, in September, by some, it's called Bigger Than Us. In London, protesters glued themselves to the ground around Parliament buildings, demanding a plant-based food system to ease the climate crisis. They believed the risk of future pandemics could be reduced in an ideal vegan world, but people won't be told while history laughs at their efforts. Athens was ravaged in 430 BC by a plague that lasted 5 years. A millennium later, Salmonella's predecessor took 15 million lives in Mexico and beyond, although Aztecs mainly ate corn. I won't scorn you for what you choose to eat, but your ancestors sure like meat, so thank them for all that you are. Since 1981, HIV has swiped 35 million souls. A villain who cares not who is infant or old, it simply squats a host. Then cool as can be, it eradicates. Cancer also decimates. So what fools are we to procrastinate on activities of joy and peace? Go, glue your arse to the street if you feel so inclined, but disease thrives there too. Just remember that. Fleas, birds and bats, parasites on rats, it moves through air and fur, bigger than all of us. We worry. Should we just dance through this short and precious lifetime? How is time going? Okay, this one is called Emerge. Father mentioned being angry. I'm super angry, but I think I'll leave my heavy, angry political stuff tonight. I'll finish on this one, Emerge. This is from 2016. River sparkles under scowling sky, flowing curves, serpentine sweepings amidst clouds and concrete. Nothing is permanent. Let's go in a boat through secret underground streams to that place deep beneath the parkland roots of elm, ash, oak, and hazel, where wise old rocks with lime green beards sit still in wisdom. Do they envy us movement? Moss is slippy underfoot. Nothing is permanent. Let's alchemize emotions of liquid, peel off layers, abandon those old world clothes in a pile, slip naked into pure warm water, soak in a healing cave of glowing amethyst, until through a crack in the crystal we enter a shaft of light, magnificent and frightening. Emerge into pastel skies, return to earth boisterous, forever transformed by the fusion, welcomed back by a squelching piano made of our ancestors' mud, to play, to sing, to be. Thank you. Back at ya.
It looks like today everyone wants me to just kind of come in and introduce them a little bit. So Telmo is next. Feel free to unmute and join us.
Hi guys, can you hear me? Hello. Jules, you need to be quiet now. All right, I'm gonna do a couple of poems. My name is Telmo dos Santos. I'm based in Calgary, Alberta. Jules. Sorry. I wrote some of these poems when I was in Portugal recently, and I guess they kind of form into a cycle on the theme of love. So the first poem is called To Fall in Love, Part 1. How do we know when we've fallen in love? No one tells you usually. There isn't any particular color. There isn't any particular sound. We rely mostly on a kind of feeling that is and isn't there. When the feeling is there, it is confusing and it hurts a little. When the feeling isn't there, it hurts more. It's hard to remember a feeling when you aren't feeling it. It's hard to describe a feeling. A feeling feels how it feels. Maybe you close your eyes and you try to remember. Maybe you close your eyes and you try to make the feeling return. But the feeling comes and goes as it pleases. The feeling is as mysterious as the next thought. To fall in love is exciting. To fall in love is frightening. To fall in love, despite it all, is lovely, isn't it? The next poem is called Nightfall Beach Running Secret. I went running at dusk. The sun was a yolk suspended in the sky, already close to the horizon. The sky was a watercolor, orange, pink, blue, white. I spoke with the descending sun. I spoke to the descending sun about you. Have you ever made a promise to a setting sun? Well, I don't know if it was a promise or a wish. The sun finally landed behind the water. I saw the form of the light change with time. That was how a luminescent ball transformed itself into a half circle, eventually a line, then a point, a golden point behind the water. The sky was illuminated by something I could no longer see. It darkened. I saw the solitary fishermen, their poles planted on the sand. The lines extended out to the sea. I passed beneath the lines like a boat on the sand, but it was darkening. The fishing lines, as so many others, were invisible. Maybe only God saw us. I thought that fishing like this, alone on the beach at night, is a romantic act. I don't know how much fish they will catch, but there they are with the sea and the sound of the sea, the sound of the waves foaming, constantly breaking, and the darkness of the universe. Later, maybe, the stars will appear, gifting them a strange company, telling them gently, here we are, you are not alone, but you are very small and you are very distant, so you are and are not alone. But I was saying, fishing like this is a romantic act. The fishermen don't know what they will catch, but there they go with hope, hope and love, night after night. Even if they leave with nothing, they are satisfied with the company of the sea. I ran in the sand. I turned back. I did not feel tired. I saw the silhouette of a couple on horseback on top of the ramparts. I'd like to walk on the beach holding your hand, witness the gradual transformation between night and day. This is how a day turns into a year, and that is the secret of nightfall beach running. I would have liked for you to tell me to stay. I would have liked for you to tell me to kiss you, but you only showed me your face, and I did not have the courage to ask for more. I don't know if I made a mistake. I confess, I don't know how to love a woman like you. Well, better speak of other secrets, like those of running on the beach at nightfall. Jules, could you eat your lunch, please?
It's yummy and it's super spicy.
All right.
I don't like the mushrooms.
Okay, be quiet now. Daddy's sweet. Okay. The next poem, there's two more. There's this poem, and then there's just a part two of the first poem. This one's called A Kiss at the Gulbenkian. Did you know? I don't know how we kissed. I remember the kiss, the kisses, my lips on yours. Jules, you sure want to hear this? Okay, go sit over there. My tongue inside your mouth, dancing around yours, the taste that had no taste. It was like your mouth, your lips, your tongue were part of me. It was good. I remember our teeth touching from so much passion, grabbing you with force. I remember all of this. I also remember that before the kiss, you finally said, well, come here. But there exists a time between your words and our kiss that I don't remember. It's like it doesn't exist. You spoke, it happened. The space between us that seemed so large suddenly disappeared. That's what happened, but I can't explain it. Afterwards, you said, hold your horses, and we stopped. You asked me in my arms delicately if I had really wanted it to have happened. I answered simply yes. And now I close my eyes and I feel the horses running and running within me. But I wanted to tell you, I don't know how we kissed at the Gulbenkian that first time. To fall in love, part 2. How do we explain it? How do we explain the capacity to fall in love? It must require great courage, or it must require great foolishness. Perhaps both or neither. Maybe it is just the universe moving through us. I didn't think I could fall in love. When I was in a relationship, I would ask myself, is this it? Eventually, I would decide it wasn't. I had to figure out what love was not before I could figure out what love is. Now I'm in love. It is frightening and exciting. A little lovely and a little terrible. The scariest part is knowing it could end any time. I think they call it falling in love because it happens so unexpectedly. In fact, you are completely disorientated. It is almost as if you are falling upwards. Thanks, everyone. I'd like to thank all the poets that came before. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And everyone who comes afterwards. Really appreciate the opportunity to be here for the 30th edition of this wonderful group of poets and listeners. And I'll keep tuning in. I thank everyone. And see you next time. Josie likes it too. See you guys. Thank you.
Bye.
All right, Samari will be joining us. I'm so glad you're able to come back from our last week's National Coming Out Day Poetry March. And I hope those of you who weren't able to watch us live last week, as you know, all the videos are still on the Cultivating Voices live poetry group page. I really encourage you to take some time to listen to our readers from last week. Samari was one of those folks, but had a few technical difficulties. I'm really glad you're able to join us this week to so we could definitely hear those poems we didn't quite get to hear.
Thank you, Sandy. Okay, can everyone hear me okay this time? Okay, cool. I hope this goes better than last time. Yeah, my name is Samari. I use they, them pronouns. And it's an honor to read for the 30th reading. I'm really excited. And thank you to our hosts and everyone who's been performing. Okay, I'm going to start off with a poem called A Wind-Up Toy Soldier. Here it is. Can you remind me where this sentence ends? The place where it flutters and lands upon the surface of the page, like a duck on the pond water where these words live? Or where this sentence, a court-ordered sentence, spent in a penthouse whose walls wept in silence, ends? because my tongue has been spinning this sentence like a cherry stem or a song all the way out of the doors to my cage. But I'm forgetting. Oh dear, please tell me, where does the period go? Otherwise, I'll just keep talking, because I've discovered that I have numerous tongues, and they seemed to grow like leaves in springtime when my winter ended, and there was no frost to kill their budding words. So remind me where there's a pause, because this sentence is a wind-up toy soldier who just keeps marching on plastic feet, who forgot the rhythm of walking. Tell me to stop. Please tell me when to stop. Tell me when to. Let's wind up toy soldier. The next poem I have is more recent. It's called A Mouthful of Gills. Here it is. A tongue swiped across my shaking fingers, and then I realized it was my own. I left my hands away from my eyes so that I wouldn't turn into a ticking clock, so that he couldn't see the time. Some other mouth devoured, not my own. Mine was already filled with the unspoken, the unbreathing. My mouth was full of flapping, useless gills. I cannot bite if I cannot breathe. I wanted to hold his hand, but my own were ticking. I wanted to apologize, but my gills were dying. Disaster offers clarity. I fell into memory without seeing what I tripped on. My feet limned the water, and as I remember, make the is the was. I give myself the water I needed. Little fish in my water, I am my own memory, glinting like rainfall below, at the base of everything. That was A Mouthful of Gills. This one's slightly older. I think it's from, wow, quarantine? Wow, okay. Game of Quarantine was so long ago. Anyway, here's this poem. It's called Rain. Yeah, here it is. If you were the rain, rain slipped tender open through moving water canters. If you were the rain, I think I would know you better, because I would wait for thunderstorms, snapping undulates everything within you. Humming lullabies in darkened wetness, be still within your hands. Recognized by form, by song, aching, lilting, a name laid within cupped fingers. Wreck the silence, break down the doors and watch, see how you learn your own pain. Caress step across, holding you. See how you never asked a somber sky for love, but it gave you this. Beginning whispers, unfurl, silk strung release, wrapped warmly, softly, around your shoulders. That was Rain. Thank you for your lovely comments, guys. This next poem is called Child Protective Services, and you might be able to guess it's not a happy one. It's a letter to Child Protective Services, a vague one. It begins with an epigraph from one of my favorite poets, Young Lee, from his poem You Must Sing. And the epigraph goes, you must sing to be found, when found you must sing. And my apologies, Mr. Lee, I disagree with you, and this poem is why. He's one of my favorite poets, but I still disagree. The child sits amid bruised apples, between shades of dancing desire they can never unravel with their tiny hands. They sit, each eye a seed opening. No one's found this child yet. They don't know their own name. The child extends their hands until they're both pink and blossoming. They open their mouth to sing, and an apple falls out. This is a scream. Do you hear it? That's Child Protective Services. Again, no disrespect, Mr. Lee. But yeah, that's that. Okay, next poem is called Sutures. And I wrote it for my fellow trauma survivors. And here it is. Again, it's called Sutures. You were not mended. You were not broken. They didn't fix you. There was nothing to fix. Listen. They left stitches in you, told you that they sewed you back together, but they lied. You were never once too much. You were never once more than you. It was easier to believe that they saved you, even as the wounds continued to smile along your skin within your mind. It was a joke, but you didn't know the punchline, so you laughed. The smiles only grew and grew. The joke became funnier and funnier. You couldn't breathe with how much they saved you. The irony on your tongue was poison. You knew your grimaces were smiles. Listen. Don't go back now. Don't fall back on the operating table. You're still hurt. You can't walk. You're resting in your wounds. Don't live there in blood and what you had to do. You had to do it. Listen to me. You don't have to be another dead thing. Leave that on the operating table. Your stitches can be free. You can be free. Come with me and relearn yourself. Okay, that was Sutures. I'm gonna read one more. I think that's good on time. Okay, I think so. Okay, this one is another recent one. It's called What Fenris Said as He Began Ragnarok, because I love Fenris as a mythological character. Okay, here it is. When I say that I want to burn this to burn, Ragnarok to begin, I mean that I want there not to be a reason. None of this should be reasonable. That's not the point. The point is, I opened my mouth, most unfortunately, and the sun fell between my lips. Or was it always there, and I only realized the sun was in my mouth when I parted the walls of my throat and it burned? This is the question of my existence. Was I always who I am and forcibly unlocked? Or did something brand me as the starving wolf who refuses to swallow? I want to bite the hand that reaches out to me. I want to destroy, but I care too much for there not to be a reason. There will always be a reason. Ragnarok begins, and I spit out my tongue. Thank you. That's all I have. Thank you for having me.
Hello, I hope you can hear me. Okay, all right. First time to do this. I'm going to go on a bit of a romp around the world first. I want to start in California, the west coast of the US. We had a little bit of a problem with wildfires. And so my first poem is inspired by the cloak of smoke that we had on the west coast for about a week. Through a glass darkly, they said it would be like this after the bomb. A seriograph of layers merging gray with green, an aerial perspective of mentally charged trees in winding sheets of filthy air. Nature's chain smokers have jumped the fire lines to the sounds of lightning strikes. Blinded juncos have gone to search for the graves of little brown birds to fill their throats with songs they will never sing. The Holocaust blast of 1,000-year-old trees, lawn chairs, living rooms, laptops, lapwings, and library receipts dusts my hair and catches my tongue. Mirthless songbird, empty mornings, midday of the specter forest, no jewel of the homeless evening, no pearl of the vagrant midnight. Inside the gray-scaled color wheel, this Valkyrie wind of the tissues of towns, ranch houses, campsites, baby buggies, and battery cases, finds my front door to taste my lips. They said it would be like this in the last days. 4 horsemen with rheumy eyes, reciting fog verse over invisible cliffs. With each toss of the wind, etch-a-sketch worlds turn upside down, where sound itself has found its vacuum inside the belly of the whale. So now we're going to cross the pond to Morocco. I was fortunate enough to visit there 2.5 years ago. And the inspiration for this poem was the main square in Marrakesh. It's a word picture. Tumblers fly to firecracker strands. Berbers dance in desert fury. Barkers call between the spaces found in folded dollar bills. Burkas switch, allure occulted, pastel veils hide softer accents, found in whiffs of incense rising, experience and innocence. Taxi stands with open windows, negotiate the arid dusk, magic carpets for the tourist, ladybugs arrayed to fly. Beaded belts, false scimitars, swarm of stands and fire sparks, Vespa routes, crooked guides, barking dogs and carriage rides, and the ever never changing wall of the world of all peoples. Twisted roads of the hookah home, wreaths of sound on jeweled skin, oboe cries like the muezzin call and sways the pendulum of time. Then now I'm going to go up north and take a chance. I'm actually going to do a poem inspired by the British Isles. And I'm guessing this probably would take place about 50 years ago. And it is a classic sonnet form called Brigadoon. The barley, beer, and whiskey they did flow, the candied shortbread served on silver trays, stood next to Dundee cakes in sugared snow, while glasses spoke to celebrate his days. The fire glow danced on walls its reeling flames, the incense from the cedar fine perfume, to honor those that left before they came. An empty chair in hapless Brigadoon. His friends be dreaming, swapping ancient tales. Then someone reads his favorite Robbie Burns. A piper serves up something of the vales. The guests commence to toasting, taking turns. The father stands, his heads are bowed in prayer, invokes a God whose joy they cannot share. Can't believe I haven't messed up yet here with a word. I will soon though, because this one is brand new. I'm actually writing a series of epic cycles for a chapbook that's to be published. It's for a nonprofit in the Tacoma area, Advocates for Immigration in Detention. And so it's an immigrant story. This one is one section of the Chinese immigrant American experience of the 19th century. Sam Gong is Cantonese for Gold Mountain. This first one is in the mining rush of the 1858s anyway, I'll go with Fields of Gold. Okay, here we go. Sam Gong, Fields of Gold. Spring sprung the rosy peony, bouquets then bedecked the bowers. Memory dear our wedding day, cherry blossoms, dancing showers. I cannot leave, my cue is gone, hunted down and cut in shame. The emperor would have my head if I came home to you again. My face shines in pans of sluicing, cracked hands muddied in groveling soil of dying food and living yellow, the pans for cooking greasy dreams. Rock the cradle full of gravel to sleep with empty eyes, forever searching played out minds that only Chinamen keep working. Hide away my tiny satchel, my sacrificial treasury. A million stones have given way, my soul to sand by water worn. In vaults of darkness, black footsteps began. They came in chaos of the non-yin and yang, in voices of monsters with revolvers that sang a tune of destroyers and gold-fevered gangs. The pearl of my delta in Canton they stay, the captives of miners, they wait for my pay. A handful of dollars and a letter to say our number one son has perished today. Sway on a shovel a father's lament, pendulum between peoples. The soil of China calls my boy. Confucius whispers his goodbye. My Tao lives in the gravel of Gold Mountain. It's hard to read. It hurts. I'll end now with a quick love poem, unless there's more time. I do have more, but a quick love poem, and it's a tribute to poetry itself. Maybe you're like a bell that cannot ring its meaning. Or maybe you're like the sea, washed blue with bubbles popping. Or maybe you're like this dance, a slow drag long remembered. Or maybe you're like the hawk, too proud to share your hunting. Or maybe you're like the laugh that seems forever charming. Or maybe you're like this trail which wanders through vast meadows. Or maybe you're like the time that counts us both together. Or maybe you're like this poem that cannot be unwritten. So do I have any more time? More, she says more, okay. Oh, okay. Well, let's see here. Just one moment, I'll just poke at one here. Oh, I got some plague poems, but that one's not good. This is a plague poem. I did a whole series, they've all been published, but this one is probably the most rambunctious. Hopefully I can do it. With so many faces and unleavened bread, lines waiting idly 6 feet apart from knowledge and comfort in, squeaking of pine saw, reeking of drive-up morgues, was giving us the tally-ho of bodies thrown under buses with no school children in the seats of finance advisors, political advisors, medical advisors, sanitizers, clarifiers, justifiers, hypnotizers, tranquilizers, high-fivers, campaign rally in the Oval Office of the prisoners of the PPEs, EMTs, CDCs, extraordinary renditions to Florida. A check in every pot, a chicken in every stock, dollar cost, averaged forced staycations, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, $1, all in business, stand up and holler louder than rest homes, nursing homes, assisted living homes. Cowering on quiet streets, counting daily counts, counting recovered cases, counting total cases, counting dead cases, counting on Cape Crusaders with ventilators to the rescue, the Fed to the rescue, the stimulus to the rescue, unemployment numbers springing like an Olympic gymnast at the canceled game stat. My faith lies sleeping like the bundles on the gurneys. Yep. Do I have more time or am I done? I got one more. Okay. All right. Okay. I'll throw in another plague poem. This one was recently published. Visitation. It hid in butterfly wings, silkworms' mouths, and the spinnerets of black widows. In the preening feathers of birds on screensavers, in baby carriages with ribbons and bows, in bridal gowns between the folds. Shook the rag doll bony fingered, bewitched neighbors to strangers and strangers to enmity. Clung to dorms, doormen, dowagers unheard, flew on shuttlecocks like showy singing birds on the edge of tear ducts, home of harried eyes in black forests and the North Sea sunrise. Rode grocery carts and prescription warnings, kissed children in their kindergarten mornings, tripped kitchen corner window pane alarms, charged the tops of roll-top desks with charms. Rattled naked nations with tendrilled words, winds and wonders, pushed in tongues and vapors, entwined on flowered fingers, perched in whitewashed windows and sleeping adders' stingers, remembering closed lips of tulips, too cold to touch. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you so much, Bill. Definitely want to encourage you when the chapbook gets published, let's get you booked for a new book showcase reading too. It's really important work. I want to thank our second hour readers, Catherine Crowley, Telmo DeSantos with special guest Josephine, Samari Zisk, and Bill Fay. And also another round for our first hour readers, G. Buck, John W. Sexton, G.E. Hemon, and Patter O'Donoghue. I also want to give a big shout out to my sister Elizabeth Ann for her work over on Facebook during the reading, and to Don Krieger, who provides so much technical support that allows us to do this week after week. Well, you've been watching today our 30th week of Cultivating Voices live poetry here on Facebook via Zoom. A reminder to join us this Tuesday, for our second special event of October, a reading with the poets of Longleaf Press. We have an event page if you want to see the poets that are going to be reading. And you'll be joining your co-host Shannon Ward. And of course, join us next Sunday with our final reading of October. I do not know where October has gone. Our new books showcase featuring the new books of Megan Alpert from Washington State, Patrick Lodge from the UK, and Anne MacDonald from Ireland. Absent you known, I'm your host of Cultivating Voices live poetry, encouraging those of you in the US, please vote by whatever means available to you. I suspect and believe that the world is literally counting on us to get our votes counted. It can't happen fast enough, in my humble opinion. Well, for those of us in the US voting, I wish you well. And of course, to everyone else, wherever you're joining us from today, be well. Take very good care of your beloveds, as I always encourage you to do whenever we're together, which means wear your masks. And of course, look what happens when we keep writing. A very, very good week to all of you. And I hope I'll see some of you on Tuesday as well as next Sunday. Peace out.